Hi all, it's Thursday again, and today's date is October the 18th. This is the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show, and my name's Thomas Williams. I hope you enjoyed the show. We've had some sad news this week. Former Air Force Sergeant Carl R. Wolf, who died in an accident. Not yet confirmed whether it was an accident or was deliberate. Who had previously outed top secret photographs that he'd seen of an alien base on the far side of the moon. He died this week, or last week, aged 74. And of course, the legendary Bob Dean also passed this week. Finally, he must have completed and accomplished his mission here. He did die back in September of 2011 for a few hours and was told to get back. He hadn't finished, so I presumed he's finished his work, and Bob's passed on this week also. Also, one of our members lost her dad today. All very sad for Karen Carpenter of the MeWe. And so this next song goes out to those three people. Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Pride at the beginning and pride at the end. Right, we're going to mix the show up again. There's not a lot of intel that can be put out. Things are rather sensitive, and I mean ultra sensitive. But you'll get the gist of it in the pieces that I've prepared and the bits that I've got. So that will be all in the second hour. We're going to race through the news items and probably get through some questions, and then the rest of it will be the intel and the op-ed pieces. Right, announcement this coming Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on OYM as their guest again, so pencil that in. So I'll be having fun with the lads from Ireland again. We always have fun on that show, and it's always interesting. And tune in this Sunday. Right, so let's get to the details of the show. And if you want to listen live, it's www.spreaker.com/user/895-5881. You can also listen live on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. And that's got all the must listen to shows. For those of you who are new, the must listen to shows are in order, and it gives you an idea of what THI is all about. And there's all the archives on there, and self-empowerment documents, and etc., etc. We've got the Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity, and the social media alternative of MeWe.com. If you can't find us on MeWe, which many can't, send an email. And the email for the show, which is also for comments or questions for the show, is truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. And for those of you in Europe, honour is spelt without the U. There's been a few sent in with the U. So they've dropped the I wonder why. Anyway, we've got the People's Club Foundation, and that's at thepeoplesclub.org. You can send proposals into that and read all about it on thepeoplesclub.org. And for those of you who wish to donate to myself, there's patreon.com/TommyW/memberships. And once again, thanks to all who have donated. Right, let's wind way down the page. A lot of stuff to cover this week. So I've tried to keep the news items briefer. Of course, the Brett Kavanaugh, or Kavanaugh, as it's said in America, story rolls on. And this time somebody wrote a Facebook post who works at CBS. And the news anchor there, Chris Long, has been suspended before resigning from his position. after the veteran journalist took to Facebook to write a 400-word post defending Mr Kavanagh on September the 17th. Now, this was well before, obviously, he was confirmed to the Supreme Court, and subsequently the post has been deleted, like a lot of other things, including YouTube this week, which seems to have rattled a few cages. It's only YouTube, you know. Never mind. It was only off for a couple of hours. And Mr Long of CBS says, I have absolutely no sympathy for the increasingly long list of well-known names who have fallen from grace because they thought with their little head and not with the big ones. And then he started off well, and then he started to take a turn. You are beyond dreaming if you think 17-year-old boys are not going to misbehave from time to time as they begin to attempt relationships with the opposite sex. That is just the way animals are made, he said. He also wrote, a few things are more serious as rape, and that Ford's accusation stinks of political manoeuvring. And he also added that if he were nominated for the Supreme Court, they might have to enlarge the Senate hearing room to accommodate all young women from the mid-late 60s who felt they had tried to go a bit too far. Of course, the media jumped on that, and his comments and choice of words drew a lot of backlash from other commentators and journalists, and the post got deleted and he was fired. You see, you can't state your opinion here anymore, and that's the way things are going. It won't always be that way. And here's a subtle sign of change. Police in California and Oregon this week did a raid on Antifa members. These are, for those who are new, are not anti-fascists as portrayed, and they're a group of former miscreants paid to organise and generate violence by the clowns, be it Soros, be it the agency goons, you name it. That's who and what they are. Anyway, 20 were arrested this week, and 15 names and faces were published for the public viewing, which is quite a change. And this could well be a sign of a follow-up to Trump's tweet last week over paid protesters. So they're going after them as well. President Trump suggested that Defense Secretary James Mattis could be one of the next administration officials to depart his cabinet. In an interview this week, which was airing on 60 Minutes on Sunday, the president said that there are some people in his administration that he's not thrilled with. I would imagine so. And asked by correspondent Leslie Stahl if Mattis is going to be leaving, Mr. Trump replied, well, I don't know. He hasn't told me that. I have a very good relationship with him. I had lunch with him 2 days ago. And it could be that he is. I think he's a sort of a Democrat, if you want to know the truth. Now, Trump said of the retired Marine Corps general, but General Mattis is a good guy. We get along very well. He may leave. I mean, at some point everybody leaves. People leave in Washington. Well, that's partially correct. Mr. Trump dismissed reports of chaos in the White House as fake news, but said, I'm changing things around. So clearly he hasn't finished, and he is entitled to. I have people now on standby that will be phenomenal. There's your message. And he also said they will come into the administration and they will be phenomenal. Now, people will remember a cryptic post. I know some of you don't like it. Time will tell on this, but perhaps you now understand that cryptic post from a number of weeks ago of generals gathered in the Mattis, just like witch hunts at Black Masses. Time will tell. Donald Trump again. Been a busy man this week, which is a pity, as certain things could have, other things could have been done or accomplished, but there's that much going on. It's difficult. I don't think there's enough hours or days hours in the day or days in the week at the moment. But also in that interview, he said that the Saudis could be behind the disappearance of the missing journalist and Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi, and if so, the US would inflict severe punishment. This was also a reference made in a show a couple of weeks ago. Watch Saudi, watch Israel, watch Yemen. Now, Trump said that the Saudis denied in every way you can imagine anything to do with Khashoggi's disappearance when his son-in-law Jared Kushner spoke with the Saudi Arabia Crown Prince. But Trump said the country may still be responsible and an investigation is ongoing. He said, could it be them? Yes. When asked what kind of punishments he may pursue if Saudi Arabia is found to be behind the disappearance, Trump wouldn't commit to sanctions or cutting sales of military equipment to Saudi from American companies. But he did go on to say, which is kind of disappointing in some aspects, why we need a manufacturing plant here. He said, I'll tell you what I don't want to do is I don't want to hurt jobs. I don't want to lose a big order like that with the Saudis. And he says there are other ways of punishing. Well, I'm sorry, but if they're going to commit acts like that, and it's not proven yet, should we really be trading with these companies in militaristic ways? Maybe not. Now, tens of thousands of people's financial futures have been thrown into question when they were denied public service loan forgiveness. Now, that particular program allows certain not-for-profit and government employees to have their federal student loans cancelled after 10 years of payments. Why are they any different to anybody else? Now, 1 in 4 American workers are in the public service and could in theory be eligible according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But last year, the Bureau reported that student loan services are failing to guide borrowers to the consumer protection, mostly by not informing them of what they need to do to qualify. And as a result, just 96 people out of nearly 30,000 who applied to be released from their debt have been approved. Now, last year was the first year people could qualify for forgiveness, since it requires 10 years of payments, and the program began in 2007, just when the financial meltdown took place. They pull out slush funds out of other places. We'll hear more about slush funds later. Now, what I can say on this is, thankfully, the Trust is still working on a plan for the student loans issue. Any further news, we will update you in this show. More bizarre nonsense this week of politicians claiming to be one thing and another. Like this is important, but this is the levels that these people are going to. Elizabeth Warren released a DNA test that proves strong evidence that she had Native American in her family tree dating back 6 to 10 generations. Ooh. Who cares? You know, an unprecedented move by one of the top possible contenders for the 2020 Democratic nomination for president. Really, you have zero chance as a Democrat. Trust me on that. Zero. Warren, who now claims to be Native American blood, has been mocked by President Trump and other Republicans and provided the test results in an effort to defuse questions about her ancestry that have persisted for years. Now, she planned an elaborate rollout Monday of the results as she aimed for widespread attention, and the analysis of Warren's DNA was done by a Stanford University professor and an expert in the field. His work on tracking population migration via DNA analysis. I think it's about 1 in 1,000 portion of DNA. In the end, who knows and who really cares, you know? After we had 8 years of a non-American and hardly anyone questioned, although Trump did, it just beggars belief. The federal budget deficit has swelled to $779 billion this year alone, and this is according to the Treasury Department on Monday, which was driven in large part by a sharp decline in corporate tax revenues, according to the Portal People, after the Trump tax cuts took effect. There's far more nonsense of that deficit than the tax cuts. Trust me, it's been going on for many, many years. The deficit rose nearly 17% year over year, from $666 billion last year to $779 billion this year, and is now on pace to top $1 trillion a year before the next presidential election, according to the Portal People. According to us, that's BS and won't happen. You all know why from previous shows. We're just waiting for the go-ahead. Now, the deficit for the 2008 fiscal year, which ended on September the 30th, was the largest since 2012, when the economy and federal revenues were still recovering from the depths of the recession. Newsflash, we still are. It never ended. Administration officials attributed the deficit rise to greater federal spending, including the military and domestic spending increases that President Trump approved this year, and not the $1.5 trillion tax cut. That will be corrected. Mitch McConnell's been in the news this week, which is not going to please people. And he insisted that the change had nothing to do with a lack of revenue or increased spending. This is to do with the budget deficit also. And instead, he blamed due to entitlement and welfare programs costs. The debt, he said, was very disturbing and driven by the 3 big entitlement programs, as he called it. Someone needs to remind it it's not entitlement. He blamed Medicare, Social Security and Medicaid. Now, I don't know too much about Medicaid, but I'm certain that people pay into Medicare and Social Security so they get out some of what they get back. So how is that an entitlement? These politicians need to be educated badly. Now, there's been a bipartisan reluctance to tackle so-called entitlement changes because of the popularity of those programs. And hopefully at some point here they will get serious about this, and President Trump promised to leave Medicare untouched on the campaign trail, but Republican leaders like House Speaker Paul Ryan and Florida Senator Marco Rubio, no surprise, have long indicated their desire to cut entitlement programs to pay for their tax cuts. Perhaps we need to cut their lobbying funds. Big celebration in the US Army this week. Seems to be all American news this week. Well, we do tend to go around the world, but this is a triumph for this particular lady and for females in general. Lieutenant General Laura J. Richardson has succeeded in breaking through a glass ceiling in the US Army. Now she's set to break a new one. For the first time in US Army Forces Command history, a woman will be leading the largest command in the Army. Now she will be representing 776,000 soldiers and also 96,000 civilians. But this may be a first for the Army, but for Richardson, she's had other firsts, as she's been with the US Army since 1986. And in 2012, she became the first female Deputy Commanding General for the 1st Cavalry Division, known as America's First Team. 2017, she became the second in command to General Robert B. Abrams when she was named the first female Deputy Commanding General of FORSCOM in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Congrats to her. No, well, maybe I shouldn't. I'm just not. Maybe I'm too old, but I just don't see women fighting in armies as a good thing for society. I wouldn't ban it or suggest stopping it. I just don't think it represents the female role model too well. You know, it's all about caring and nurturing, not destroying. This is the balance that we've lost. But like I said, I congratulate her for doing that, but it doesn't sit or feel right to me. The UN is next. And quite frankly, a disturbing dossier. It won't disturb those in THI, we've covered it extensively. But a dossier that was being released by a former senior United Nations official reveals this week that the United Nations employees have carried out over 60,000 rapes in the last 10 years. 6,000 a year. What's more, the dossier estimates that the organisation currently employs at least 3,300 pedophiles. Now, just 10 years under the guise of rendering aid, which is a misnomer, the United Nations has literally been raping and pillaging countries across the world, and the problem has gotten so out of hand that has prompted the former UN insider Andrew MacLeod to blow the whistle and hand over the evidence to Britain's Department for International Development. And that was given to the Secretary, Mr. Patel. Now, according to the report, the dossier reveals that on top of the 3,300 pedophiles working for the organisation, thousands more predatory sex abusers specifically target aid charity shops to get close to vulnerable women and children. Now, according to MacLeod, anyone who attempted to blow the whistle on the horrifyingly rampant abuse is silenced and or fired. And in his dossier, Professor MacLeod last night warned that the spiralling abuse scandal was on the same scale as the Catholic Church. Indeed. Now, whilst the report reveals there are 3,300 current employees who are active pedophiles on the UN payroll, MacLeod estimates the real number to be far higher. And he said there are tens of thousands of aid workers around the world with pedophile tendencies, but if you wear a UNICEF t-shirt, nobody will ask what you're up to. You have the impunity to do whatever you want, and it is endemic across the aid industry across the world. The system is at fault and should have been stopped years ago. You can add Red Cross and some of the other charity organisations to that. They're all involved in it. That's what they're there for. Collect money off people and go and get up to heinous criminal acts. It really is beyond comprehension. The Catholic Church is bad enough. Like the professor said, it's equal to that. And this is beyond comprehension for most people, even in the awake community. That the sheer depth of it, it's staggering. Britain. We're off to Britain next. Hundreds of thousands of pensioners who are approaching state pension age will miss out on winter fuel payments this year because the goalposts have been moved. No surprise there, they always do that in the UK. But American listeners, pensioners get a fuel payment top up on their retirement or benefit. They keep altering the age and people keep missing out. That's what happens. So because the age you become eligible to receive up to £300, which is roughly $420 ballpark, discount off your energy bills has risen in line with increases to the age women get their state pension. Now, until April 2010, women reached state pension at 60, but this figure has been gradually rising, and this November it will reach 65 for both men and women. After this, it will rise in stages to age 68 between 2037 and 2039. I'll be amazed if it went that far. Bear in mind, most of those clowns will have been gone who make up this bullshit. So, now what this means for the winter fuel payments is that last tax year you'll need to be born on or after August the 5th, 1953 to qualify. This means you would have been aged at least 64 and 3 months when the benefit was typically paid out in November. A classic British politic tactic. Give in one hand and take more in the other. And there was a meme in the UK, because this has been going on for a long time, and a lot of the elderly are faced with a drastic choice during the winter. They either eat or they heat, and very few can do both. And this is a national scandal, and the people should do more about it, in my opinion. We'll all be elderly and pension age one day. You can't just ignore it because you're young and that's years away. And it's only the pensioners, they're just a nuisance. No, they're not. And any society that ignores children and pensioners is not particularly civilised, in my opinion. Mr. Trump and Britain again. Trump said he will kick-start. Read between the lines on this. Trade talks with Britain the moment Britain quits the EU. Brexit and all that nonsense. That was revealed yesterday, and America's top trade official announced plans for a cutting-edge deal with the UK to be struck as early as the spring. Mr. Lighthizer, the US trade rep, insisted the negotiations will begin shortly after Brexit allegedly takes place on March the 29th, because both sides have been preparing for talks since last year. Now, the plans emerged in a letter sent by Mr. Lighthizer to the leaders of the US Congress yesterday, and he wrote, "We intend to initiate negotiations with the United Kingdom as soon as it is ready and it exits from the European Union on March the 29th, 2019. Seems to be a lot of things getting pushed back to 2019, isn't it? Now, the United States and the United Kingdom are the first and fifth largest economies in the world, respectively, and maintain a broad and deep trade and investment relationship, which is rather shallow, one would suggest. The study this week, an actual valid one for once, but over the past few decades, America's tornadoes, known as Tornado Alley, has been shifting east. According to this new study, tornadoes have been shifting due to decreasing tornadoes in Oklahoma, Texas and Kansas, but spinning up more in states along the Mississippi River and farther east, it revealed. Scientists aren't particularly sure why. They never are. And tornado activity is increasing most in Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Iowa and parts of Ohio and also Michigan. So the tornado alley is shifting east. Maybe one day it'll go out into the ocean and not bother everyone. Message for the people who have Apple users are now being given, or Apple are allowing users to download any data the iPhone maker has collected on them and delete it. On Wednesday, they launched a dedicated privacy portal for US users that let them request a copy of all their data they have on them, correct any errors, and pause or delete their Apple account. Now, it follows the launch of a privacy portal, nice reference, for European users in May as part of Apple's compliance with the new General Data Protection Regulation rules. That's a mouthful. Which require firms to have a data portability tool, among other things, to protect users and their data. This also applies to customers in Canada, Australia and New Zealand. They can also take advantage of the portal. So users can see and search through all the data that they've collected, which many include things like photos, iCloud data, calendar entries, documents, App Store purchases and a history of repairs on your devices, along with other information. Really? Now, prior to the tool launching, users could request their data by contacting Apple directly, which they largely ignored. And after a user requests their data, they'll have to wait a few days for Apple to prepare the file. Indeed. One day that will all go. Trust me on that. Work's underway on that. The Justice Department have charged a Treasury Department employee with giving a reporter confidential banking reports tied to Paul Manafort. Maria Butina and other suspects charged in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia's investigation. And federal prosecutors say Natalie Mayflower Sowers Edwards will appear in court Wednesday in Alexandria, Virginia. Edwards, who is 40, is a senior official at the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Names go on forever. She is accused of leaking the material to a journalist who was not named in the criminal complaint. Now, she had tried to conceal her relationship with the reporter on Tuesday and denied having any contact with the news media when FBI agents first interviewed her. Busy boys them at the moment, the FBI people. According to court documents, that also reveals she's ultimately confessed, but they say Edwards claimed to be a whistleblower who sent the documents to a reporter for record keeping. Although she has previously filed a whistleblower complaint with the Treasury Department, agents determined that it was unrelated to the document leaks. I'm saying no more than that. US President Donald Trump, as this is the final news piece, has threatened to use military force to completely close the US-Mexico border. The warning via a series of tweets today comes as a new caravan of more than 3 and possibly as more as up to 4,000 migrants from El Salvador, Honduras and Guatemala heads north. Mr. Trump has already threatened to cut all aid payments to the 3 countries over illegal immigration, and the group say they are fleeing violence and poverty in the home country. In addition, Trump said to stop all payments to these countries, which seem to almost have no control of their population. I must, in the strongest of terms, ask Mexico to stop this onslaught, and if unable to do so, I will call up the US military and close the southern border. That has nothing to do with poverty and violence, although there is a lot in Central and South America, some of it deliberately, well, most of it. This is to do with Obama and his Muslim Brotherhood gangs who are inside these caravans, ready to launch mayhem on US-American soil. So that's why the Trump threatened with the military. It's the same thing we reported many, many months ago. Right, some questions. Majestic 12. Yes, they have or had technology, including dream-inducing technology. And yes, they have interfered with people in the past. But the Majestic 12 are now all dead, as reported in a show many months back. They were taken out by the SS Small P. So that particular group is not interfering like they used to. I thought I heard you say we would live to 100, but you would live to 1,000 years. What's up with that? That's not what was said. What I said was people in 3D used to live from, or should be able to live from between 900 to 1,500 years, not 70 to 100. It's because they've interfered with our genetics. The stories in the scriptures of people being, was it Merlin? It was 900 years old. But the average lifespan of a 3D being, human being, is 900 to 1,500 years. Next part. I'm pretty sure that you said that 50% of funds would go to humanitarian aid and the other 50% to the people of the world, with seniors getting a permanent increase. Has that changed now, or did I hear wrong? You heard wrong. 50% will be going to the governments and 50% will be going to the people, which will include the 50% to the people will include some aid to people, all people in fact, but the humanitarian aid will largely come via the governments, because there's many governments and countries around the world who desperately need to spend their GDP on the people and not on all kinds of other nonsense, paying back bogus loans to the UN and IMF and World Bank. So, portion 3. I've also heard of one project that would go around the Earth at 700 miles per hour. If that is just one loop, what would be the purpose. I can see a lot of things where the money could be better spent there, and there needs to be oversight, or people will just take a big chunk and sit back and laugh all the way to the bank. I don't know where. I presume you're talking about the train. I have no idea where the 700 miles an hour came from. But the train has many purposes. One, it's safer travel. Well, and it has many other benefits also. So I hope that clears those three up. I think I misunderstood discussion of magic in previous shows, especially the one that also related to egregores. I thought a way to fight black magic would be to learn white magic as a counteracting measure. I bought a used book on magic, but listening to the past couple of shows, I now see my idea is not a good one. I've never considered burning a book before, but would like to eliminate this magic book from my life, and symbolically from all lives. Do you think, in consideration of collective consciousness, that burning such a book would have a negative energetic effect in a way? Light magic is still trickery, and it's still performed by others, not the person inducing the magic. You know, the key to it all, people have what is deemed to be magic, but it's natural abilities once you're on the mental planes of soul evolution. But magic in and of itself is cheating. It's like lazy man's tech again, as I pointed out last week. As for burning the book, I'm not too sure on that, but it may be beneficial, it may not be. I'm not too sure. I haven't really got an opinion on that. But I would suggest not using white or black magic. It's not good. Not when you realise who it brings in, which is why we warned about that Soul Tribe Sanctuary group last week. Some are stating that the SpaceX Falcon launch is a cover-up of some sort. Hydrogen has no light source, so whatever they used was not normal. Hidden tech, creation of a portal, definitely not creation of a portal. I can tell you that for nothing. Do you have any information on what the light source technology is? There are other videos posted on YouTube showing this very same thing in the sky at various times. Yes, I saw the YouTube video of the launch and the capture of the returning portion. One would suggest that the payload was not beneficial for the benefit of all. And like what happened on the launch pad early this year, should you or they launch things that are not beneficial, they will have consequences, as you have seen. As for the light source, I don't know about that. Can you say anything about the council, perhaps how much control they have? They have no control. We have control. They are observers of the peace treaty, and that things don't go radically sideways on a planetary wide scale, but they have no control over us. Are they a combination of races? Yes, they are, including all the rogue ones. And the difference now is because we were under martial law for 16,500 years, there were and are beings here that enforced that martial law under order. Now those beings, or many of them anyway, are enforcing the peace treaty. So should SSP or other clowns decide to meddle, there will be swift and devastating consequences of actions for those people, because they're under orders by the council to enforce the peace treaty, not martial law. So a lot of the former rogue entities are now actually neutral for most, and supportive in some cases. Do you have any information on the Gulf of Mexico contains the eye of the earth? No, I don't, sorry. Who designed us as human beings? Source. Was Marduk the guardian of the Matrix? If so, who's the architect? Many groups, Mantids, Greys, they were all part of it. Is there a Freemason lodge in Belgium working in favour of mankind? No idea, sorry. Is Pope Francis still going to try and take control of all organised religion? Pope Francis can't control his bladder or bowel, never mind organised religion. He has no power and no authority. Everything comes from the hidden higher levels, of which there are two people, a grey pope and a black pope. They dictate, but Pope Francis is just a figurehead. You've spoken about Radomir and Mary Magdalene in several shows, including the From Russia with Love Part 1 and 2. Would you please do a more extensive, in-depth show on these wonderful, fascinating people and their story for us? I'll try, but it roughly for those type of shows it takes around 30 to 40 hours to compile. We'll see. Were the Albigensians, Bogomils and Cathar communities hunted down, exterminated by the RCC in connection with Radomir and Mary? It's mainly the Templars, the Cathars and the Franks were also hunted. Could you please explain what's in the new chemtrails? No, I can't. Just know that it's taken place. A lot of people are very sick and the virus has left them for a long time. That's assuming that it's been proven that the virus is caused by rogue chemtrails. There's lots of reasons for viruses, like being released from labs as human experimentation, which we've covered in previous shows. Whole towns of them. But it's not just the trails that are affecting former viruses. It's also the source energy. Would you elaborate on the timing of fate of fake humans or cloned humans? Well, like I said, the synth theory is not being fully proven. It is supported by a fair chunk of evidence, but if they are purely synthetic and we go 100% organic, then they're going to phase out. Like I said, it's not proven. Now, another theory I've put forward is that these synths could well be possessed individuals where they're not in control of themselves. makes just as much sense as them being synthetic biobots. Like I said, both are theories, but it clearly doesn't make sense how people cannot see what's going on around them and literally fight for the system. It's beyond comprehension. As for the cloned humans, around 85% of the facilities, as I understood it, has been permanently closed down. That was a number of months ago, it might be more now. Can fake humans produce authentic offspring with souls? No. The souls come in after or at the point of delivery. So yet again, if someone's calling something in, the vessel is used, and then there's soulless entities and souls going in, or they're being harvested out, which is what was going on in the past. So they thought they would collect souls, so they then could travel between the dimensions and planes like we can. That's what the whole thing with regards to the souls is. All the doctors and scientists who committed crimes against humanity, MKUltra, human experiments in black sites, bioweapons developers, be dealt with, and how do you see this playing out? I would suggest that wouldn't be forefront in what's going on currently, because I think that's the way deeper hidden layers. You have to remove the controllers that operate that to then get at the hidden inner layers. You can't just, you can under certain conditions, but the will to do that at the moment doesn't appear to be forthcoming. But you have to remove the Nazis and the Zionist element, both of which are involved in that type of experimentation. And then you get into the bunkers and research facilities and either wipe it out or assess whether certain ones can be beneficial. I mentioned this in the solutions piece. All these research labs have to be assessed. Is it beneficial in any way to humanity? If not, delete it permanently. Same applies with technology. Is it beneficial for the whole of humanity? If not, delete it, so it can't ever be misused. But that's going to be a major operation, going into all these hidden research facilities in naval bases that are nowhere near the sea, and all kinds of others, hidden in caves and whatnot. That would be a major, I would suggest, military style operation on those facilities. I've been seeing a lot of white to beige skinned pterodactyls of different sizes, as well as other things. These creatures are very wily and evil, and the pterodactyls are vicious. They are somewhat difficult to kill because they seem to be somewhat immune resilient. At this point I feel I'm living in the middle of Jurassic Park. Why are they still here? Some are in very remote locations, but maybe you're operating on a different plane, a different timeline, and that's what you're experiencing. I can't tell on how this is all being seen, but it may be better explained that you're operating on a different timeline. It may be a past memory. Sometimes the dreams can get mixed up, where you remember a portion of one and a portion of another and think it's the same one, and it may not be. what really took place. It's difficult to judge other people, what happens in other people's dreams was not there. But there are elements of Jurassic Park on this planet. Will there be help for the elderly? I see so many losing their homes and cars and they can't make basic needs. Saving money for retirement doesn't happen with such high costs these days. You work all your life and end up homeless. Yes, there'll be help for everyone, particularly the children and the elderly. Like I said, it's a national disgrace. How is it they give raises to Social Security? I'm unsure how it works, but isn't the amount you receive determined by what you put in? No. Truth be known. It's paid by the trust. What you put in was a slush fund. I told you heard more about slush funds, and we've not finished. It's just something else, another tax for them to collect off people. Social Security, Medicare, income tax, slush funds. So I worked all my life except for 8 years as a stay-at-home mum to raise my child and 8 years caring for my elderly mum, and losing those 16 years from Social Security has left me unable to afford rent. Yep, it's a common theme, and that is something else that in time these will all get looked at. Like I said, a lot of these things, the elderly, the children, is the external war. Once the internal war is completed and it goes public, then we start getting into how to fix this and how to fix that. There's already a load of plans ready to roll out. We've mentioned the tax one. It's not the only thing that has been worked on to correct major aspects of the financial skullduggery going on in this country and others. Trump cancelled the UN fund, cut back on NATO, and quit the rogue trade deals known as tariffs, which are nothing to do with the countries and everything to do with the dragon families and the fake Chinese elders and the Rothschilds making vast quantities on shipping and trade, because they're looting China as well. So please don't be blaming China, don't be blaming the Chinese government, because it's got nothing to do with them there. That country's been emptied like a bathtub. So they're sick of it as well. Do you know about Meta One? No, I don't, sorry. I have heard said that crypto and Bitcoin are just another system from the cabal. Yep. People may get lucky and may have made some money on it initially, but ultimately it's another con game, like the dinars, the zims, the dongs, blockchains. It's all a scam. Where does Kim stand in relation to student debt loans? Well, we've already talked about that. Please don't ask about those questions. Anything that comes up to do with anything relevant will be put in the show when it's ready to do so. What do you think of Patty Brassard's information? I don't. Pure and simple. Sorry. Is Anna von Reitz even being listened to, or is she just wishing to become the queen of batshit crazy grandma in Alaska? Some people listen to her. Not me. The sad thing about Anna von Reitz is she's highly intelligent, she's well read, she's got deep knowledge of history and law, and that could be put to so much better use than playing games for the factions. She works for the Vatican, according to her anyway. Secretary to the Vatican. What has all the letters she sent to the Vatican achieved? Nothing. Why is she a member of the Nazi Party? A paid member, I might add. Why did she ask him for a third, or demand a third of American in-ground resources so she could give to the Chinese elders? Miss von Reitz won't address those concerns, but I find it sad because she has much to offer, but has been sidelined by factions and agency paymasters. Is there anyone or anything being done to take back Britain? Yes, but like I've said previously, I think Europe, the EU, will probably be the last to fall. There's a lot of the control system, America is the battlefield, but the real control system is not America, it's Europe, Holland, Britain, France, Germany, and lesser known ones like Spain and Portugal. It's all part of the Six Kings, the Vikings and the Bavarian house and royalty lines. That's where it all comes from. That's where the term United States comes from. It's nothing to do with America and everything to do with Austria, the Congress in Vienna. United States. So it's far more ensconced. And of course, you've also got Rome in Europe. It's far more ensconced over there than it is here. Yes, we've got a lot of goons here that need to be addressed. But the financial city of London, the so-called religious army in Rome, they're difficult entities to break down. The latter in particular, because if the truth comes out, really comes out about that fake city, it's going to upset an awful lot of people. Still warm in Holland, I hear. Good. Is this weather manipulation or changes that are ongoing? Bit of both. I hear the comment that the dark cabal didn't only put us into debt here on Earth, but with other worlds too. And one of the things that the Trump administration is working on is clear our debts off planets as well. No, he's not. I'm not even sure that Trump's aware of it, to be quite honest, given the lack of the need to know. He's 26 layers down from that type of information. All presidents are, after Eisenhower. So Trump's not working on that, and those debts will be void. We all want to see the elites. The elites have caused us so much pain and suffering to pay for these crimes. If many of these elites are dead or in hiding and being replaced by lookalikes or other means, would arresting these replacements be futile? No, because you've still got a vast majority of people who think these people are real. So it doesn't really matter to them, does it? If the lookalike Anne is dragged in and declared as Hillary Clinton, and 90-odd% of people will believe they've arrested Hillary Clinton, while some of us will go, yeah, right. As long as all of them are removed, then it doesn't really matter. People will find out later. Maybe some of them were removed in the past. So it's not necessarily. I do get what you're trying to say with them not being the originals. You can't really charge them, but the top end people are aware of that specific problem, and whether it's the original or the copy or whatever, or the double, it will be produced to the public, and the whole entity, however many they may be, will all be eliminated or removed. Manor World Holding Trust has me totally baffled. No mention by politicians, not correct. No mention by top financial, not correct. Talking heads and investment institutions, the latter two, yes, I'll agree with that. Now, the Fed just raised the rate, which raises the prime, which means it costs more for mortgages and loans. What does this mean? It means they're operating outside of the charter. It means they're operating without a license, and it means they need to be shut down. We've provided, the trust has provided the platform for change. It needs to be acted upon. And given Trump's increasing comments, maybe that's not too far away. The central banks have no money. Where they're getting the money to loan to individuals to buy a house, they just create it out of thin air and put it down as credits and hope they get paid out in the RV to pay it all back. That's why they're in negative liquidity. They keep waiting for Rothschilds to pay this out and pay that out, and it never ever arrives because they haven't got it. And they have to be, somebody has to do Hello McFly on a load of financial people's heads, in my opinion. What will the stock market look like when everything shakes out? Well, everything will have its true value, so will oil. Hedge funds gone, I hope. I would say all type of risky betting with people's money will be either wiped out or drastically changed. My husband and I are seniors, worked our whole life, no debt, own our own house, have sizable investments in IRAs, bonds, stocks and mutual funds that we have conservatively saved up for many years. Is all that going to disappear? Well, the IRAs and will stick. As for the others, in bonds, stock and mutual funds, like everything else, they can go up and they can also go down. You know, and I'm not a financial expert, but I think everyone knows where the stock market is going to go eventually, and it's up to you to decide whether you should remove it or not. You should always diversify. Take a load out in cash, so you're always covered. That would be my suggestion. We thought we were being responsible for our life and actions, and now we're not sure of anything. Yep, that applies to us all. And that's why we do what we do. We moved out of Wells Fargo, very good, and into a credit union. Are all credit unions free from central bank clutches? In the main, far more than the main banks, yes. Do you believe in the book of Revelations? Not particularly. There will be some elements of truth in there, but all the prophecy and all that malarkey is more to do with plans, future plans, rather than prophecy. No, I haven't read the book Many Lives, Many Masters and Only Love is Real by Dr. Brian Weiss. I'm sorry about that. I don't read books. I don't no idea why I didn't read them as a kid. I can read the internet, but books, maybe I was always in a technological with holographic screens and tablets from years ago. Who knows? I've seen you refer to the Red Queen in a dream, a very scary entity, I might add. Can you expand on her more? Only what we've said previously. She was one of the last two parents who are twins, blonde and psychotic, particularly the red one. And she's not very pleasant, rather nasty individual. But from all accounts, those that are in here now are only the VI version. They're not physically in here anymore. And that applies to all the parents. Right, we're going to have a couple of songs. The second one will be indicative. And then we'll go into some intel. Hi all and welcome back to the second hour of Truth, Honour and Integrity. Right, let's get into some of the intel. I can say there's lots going on, trust me. Some very interesting things that are largely positive, but it's not safe to do so currently. So I'm sure you all understand that. But one thing I will say is the Belgian incident, the Interpol incident, the journalist incident, and the Treasury incident are all not what it seems or has been relayed. Things go much deeper than that, and it will become clearer as time moves on. The cabal this week, Rothschild et al. The reason why I played that second song have now declared all-out war on the trust and all of us who are striving for a better way. One thing I will say is no fears anyone, and I mean that. Rest assured, we are more than prepared. We are ahead of their game in thinking and strategy. We are not the few, we are the many. We will not be their inferiors in any way, shape or form. We will not back down, and we will not roll over either. Those days and that timeline is now gone. We will have big support should they escalate it into violence, as it will be in full breach of the peace treaty, and all beings have an obligation to enforce the peace treaty and will do so. So bring it on. Next piece is many of you are having rather strange experiences, an awakening, the different type of an awakening, not a knowledge awakening, a personal awakening. And the rescue team of warriors is gathering and amassing on many planes right now, I can tell you. They're all ready. Now, many of you are now experiencing some of this for the first time, and some are more further along. What I will say is, don't be afraid of it. You must take time to process it all. It can all be very consuming, with a plethora of questions like, am I going nuts? Is this real? Is my imagination running wild? These questions will all come to the fore and more. Process it. So why is this happening now and so much in THI? Because you have developed sufficiently to see, sense, experience and observe. Most think is not possible. That's why. But a warning must also be given that you exhibit maximum responsibility in that role also. Do not think you are a god, special, or above anybody else. Do not use abilities for revenge, envy, violence, or service to the self. Those will cause you to lose that status. And trust me, I've seen many people with abilities fall away over the last 5 years doing that very thing. Once at this level, you can only defend, not attack. And I'll repeat that again. You can only defend, not attack. So saying I'm going out with the purpose to kill this and that and the other in the night realms will cost you your abilities. And then you're back in the astral level of violence and pollution. Don't waste it. Everyone will be required. The more the merrier. FEMA. Told you there'd be more on slush funds. Here's another. Yet again, more disasters, either real or not, deliberate or not. But yet again, FEMA has been found wanting no planning, no training, no supplies, no distribution centres, and no actions yet again. Zero. Well, for those of you that don't know, FEMA is not a disaster agency, but another slush fund sieving vast quantities of our money out of the government coffers. And this is what happens when you have a disaster. FEMA has contracts with all the big corporate suppliers and just buy all kinds of stuff with no oversight. No credit checks, nothing. Now those suppliers are then told to just dump it anywhere near the zone. Some of it is delivered, some of it's not. Vast quantities of generators, heavy equipment, chainsaws, timber, roofing supplies, all just get dumped. Some of which goes missing, either by chancers, thieves, or by design. Go and collect the order. So when the stuff doesn't get used, they then, FEMA, call up the suppliers and notify them to come and collect it all back. And the supplier goes back, collects it all. No refund. Oh no. Zip. Nada. And then another disaster happens and FEMA buys all the same stuff again from the same contractors, does it again, and then tells them to come and collect it all again. This is beyond a national disgrace. Like the Fed and the IRS, it's just a cartel license to print money for their cronies and rogue corporations. And this shit has to stop. Rest assured, work is also underway on that. It's beyond a joke that it's gone this far. But there's many people who are in on it, backhanders here and there, big corporations, politicians. They're all getting cuts out of it. Well, FEMA spends billions of our money on all kinds of equipment and then don't use it and sends it all back to the suppliers with no refunds. And then they buy it all back and they send it all back again. Unbelievable. like I said, work is underway to correct that. So, one storm causes damage. Well, we just had two with Florence and the latest nonsense in Florida. Michael. And out comes the climate change clowns again. All too predictable. Beggars belief, actually. But where were they when Florida, which is a key hurricane zone, and had 0 hurricanes between 2004 and 2016? No, they just ignore that fact. Why let facts get in the way of an agenda? Now, we all know storms cause damage. We all get that. But the issues raised in the last show of building where we shouldn't build and the poor construction methods, particularly in the south, should not be overlooked as a major factor of the destruction. When you add in the facts that there is a massive shortfall implemented over many years of the lack of funding into America's infrastructure, where rivers, lakes, dams are not properly managed, safeguards not put in place like seawalls to protect buildings in low-lying areas, or levees deliberately blown during Katrina. Let's not forget that as well. But there's a hidden but an increasing narrative now coming into light. I pointed it out last year, that some regions are being deliberately trashed so the greedy parasites buy up all the land, property and resources for pennies on the dollar. Hello, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic and New Orleans, to name but a few, California. This has to be taken seriously, as this is what they do. They're now doing it to a whole nation to financially ruin it and then buy up everything on the cheap, or so they think. That country is America, not some third world country everyone ignores. Now, I have been in an actual Cat 3, Cat 4 storm back in 2004, and although damage was extensive, it was nowhere near what we are being shown on the Portal People TV. That was not a Cat 4 storm, nowhere near it. It just wasn't. Now, the lying everything is catastrophic group known as the Weather Channel told you that with their own wind speeds displayed on the screen whilst it was ongoing. It gave a whole host of all the regions where the storm was and where the storm going, and the winds ranged from 16 to 53 miles an hour. It was all on the screen. And whilst the storm was over land, and apparently over Tallahassee, according to the screenshot, the live pictures from Tallahassee, which is hardly far from the coast, so no diminishing of wind speeds there, was showing 41 miles per hour winds. And yet we see mass destruction, houses flattened, roads torn up, bridges torn up, whole areas gone, with 41 mile an hour winds. Basic common sense tells you something is radically amiss here, and perhaps a cover-up or a distraction of how and why the Florence storm danced up and down the coast and encompassed so many states. All smacks of the selective California fire damage to me. But one question is always overlooked in a narrative, and this is where the overview comes in. Ignore all the chaos and see the bigger picture. Now, you've all seen the damage on the TV. But there was 26 Weather Channel people, and they were all in the key locations of the storm. And yet, despite widespread destruction, which they have relayed all over the world, not one of them were injured, and not one of the buildings they were located in, close to the coast, remember, was flattened. How and why is that? Now, nobody wants anyone to be injured. But all these storms, hurricanes, and they all miraculously survive untouched, and their buildings that they're in remain intact while everywhere else is flattened. How's that possible? Just isn't, is it? Yet again, the vultures have swooped into those regions, and yet again, FEMA is found wanting. No advanced plans, no planning, everything reactive and not proactive. That will be corrected in the future. Now, one of the things that came out of the Florida issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed, is all coastal building codes have to be rewritten. It's an utter joke. They are an utter joke. No house in Florida would pass any building code in Europe. None. And anyone with no construction background in Florida can pass a building inspection course, including the advanced one, within 2 weeks. Drake will be pleased with that one. That has to change. Also, building on sandbanks in a hurricane zone. Now, for those of you that don't know, all of Florida has a narrow strip of land away from the mainland on both coasts. And this is where all the expensive properties are built. It's basically in the ocean. Now, most of Florida itself, the mainland, is sand-based. But out in the ocean, really. And places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Daytona, and even up into Georgia and the Carolinas, this building practice is beyond stupid. Or even worse, like New Orleans, which is below sea level. It's ridiculous. We have to think better than that. I know a lot of people, I did myself at one point until I seen what happened with Charlie, would all like to live on the beach. But it's dangerous. Way too dangerous. And we had a discussion in the chat, which I'm going to add into here. And the other thing that's the problem around coastal regions is mobile homes. Now, in my opinion, these need to be phased out as permanent living. They are called mobile for a reason. A bit of wind gets up or water and they go mobile. And it costs way too many lives for people living in those things each year. I do get why people live in them, because they are cheaper. But we have to think better than that and put people in solid homes, away from coastal erosion, away from storms, and away from sandbanks. Way too many people's lives are being lost because of that. But the idea that there's overpopulation and there's nowhere to build is, again, utter ridiculous. There is plenty of space to build without building on dangerous coastlines. The whole world population, each individual person, can have 1,000 square foot property and all fit in the state of Texas. The whole world population. What about all the other states and continents? Now, the issue of living near the coast is around 200 years out of date. People in the past didn't have the sanitation and water pumped into their homes like they do now through the piping system, so they had to live near water. They had no option. Now we do. And we could replace the bacteria poop pipelines, known as oil, with water pipelines and move people away from the coasts. The beach is for everyone, not just exclusive rich hotel chains. Look at all the continents. 80% of the people are living near the oceans. Now, like I said in the past, that was useful for water use, but this is 2018 for source's sake. We have the ability to move water wherever it is needed. If we can afford to spend vast sums of our money on outdated tech called oil pipelines, we can better spend that money on a pipeline that is the key ingredient for life here. Water. And despite what the reptilian-like clown of Nestle said, clean water is a human right. Once again, I can assure you, big plans are in place to correct much of what has been said in this piece. But we also have to change our way of thinking. Yes, it's fun to live on the ocean, but is it so much fun that it's worth the cost of lives and resources to correct that? In my opinion, it's a far too high a price that we've repeatedly paid throughout history, and it's time to rethink. You can go right round the world, the amount of people lost, whether it's through hurricanes, typhoons as they're called, on the other side of the planet, or deluges in monsoon areas, or earthquakes that create tsunamis. What was it, 260,000 people? And the one on Boxing Day about 12 years ago. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. But here's some of the problems about bureaucracy and how it interferes in both aspects of our lives, prevents new technology coming forward, and adds all kinds of bullshittery and nuisance value to our lives. But 125 years ago, you didn't have to ask for government permission to collect rainwater, go fishing, own a property, renovate a home, build a home, start a business, use a vehicle, get married, hunt or own a weapon, sell a product, protest, grow food on your own property, set up a lemonade stand or sell food. Now we need permission for all of that. And this is how much power we've given away or lost. We didn't have to pay tax on our income, didn't have to pay social security, all of which was paid by the trust anyway. and both are tributes to the Crown and their minions, and has nothing to do with America. Time to change all that nonsense. Now, we covered certain things in recent shows about dark magic, light magic, witches, jinns, and the spirit world. And I was sent this via email, and I think it's useful to read out, because it's got good information in it. And so thanks to that person for sending it in. Now, for those of you who have been watching the series Once Upon a Time, you'll understand some of this. There's a lot more truth in that than people realise. A lot of you know the fable of Rumpelstiltskin, the dark one, except we're all Rumpelstiltskin. We all have the ability to be Rumpelstiltskin. It's not just the one. Where it's important to find the right name to break the contract and or spell. And the quote is, "For little knows my royal dame that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." And the fable of Aladdin and the wonder lamp is a good metaphor for it. If you rub the lamp, jinn, genie comes out. A ghost comes out of the lamp, means jinn becomes activated. Like I said, be careful what you wish for. There's a reason why that saying has more meaning than it does. That means the jinn becomes activated. And it is our responsibility to put that back in the lamp, because it can and will take power over you and us. Now, this person says they know there are at least 4 categories of the jinns, and they are able to activate genes. Means an outer force and an inner proposition are resonating together. Now, you know why I keep telling you about external things, and everything's inner. If you keep allowing one way, you're forced to, life force to go out externally, and you invite external force internally, then you've got an awful lot of messed up people. And I think this is the key problem on this planet. So the 4 categories: Ifrit creates illusion. Ifrit is left brain, constructs reality, and Ifrita, female form, weaves illusion. Both pulls up the force that exaggerates our feeling nature, misleading and misguiding us through our feelings. Number 2, Malakut, force that highlights the code held within us that is inspirational in nature. That is the code that makes us seek the grace and divine, and may take us to errant behaviour, psychosis and fantasy. 3, Malkuth, imps and fairies. This will not please some. Highlights and amplifies our genetic predisposition to change, alter, seduce, forget, ignore our inner feelings, and creates poor judgment and trickery. 4, Shaitan, force that activates and takes power in our material code, holding us prisoner in the material form. This is the possession form. Rather than allow us to go into the self, there are 2 forms. Shaitan holds you actively in the power of the code. 3 wishes is part of you that opens you to a new resource, activated by the force of the wish, as in Aladdin. So I hope that helped some people. And for the person who sent that email, I won't give your name, your last comment that is omitted here is far more correct than you realise. this will make people vomit. Another reference to slush fund. Now this is from a survey that was on a paper back in 2007, so you can imagine how much higher it is now and why it has to stop. The Federal Reserve banking cartel back in 2007 was collecting $37 million per hour in interest from the American people. $37 million per hour in interest from the American people. 2007. And they still enforced the rogue so-called tax agents known as the IRS to threaten, bully and take garnishments out of our salaries. This is why this country is broke, bankrupt, and the American people have literally funded everything rogue around the world. Well, I say enough's enough. And this is why Kim and the Trust has done what it has done to the Federal Reserve and their IRS counterparts. The Trust has laid the foundation for a better way of life for the American people. It will also have a knock-on effect for all the other countries that use USD. Every country that buys or uses USD is charged 10% on every dollar. And all goes back to the Federal Reserve. And I think it's about time it is acted upon. Maybe Trump's comments are suggesting that that may take place sooner rather than later. I hope so. The term that's come up not recently, but used a lot, and people never pay any attention what its meaning is or where the etymology comes from. The term app. It's all over your phones. And people just download them willy-nilly and without realising what they're actually contracting with. But the term application started in the 15th century, and the meaning behind it is the bringing of something to bear on something else. So in other words, they're imposing on you. And the Latin of application, a joining to and attaching oneself to, like possession, in relation of a client to a patron. To attach, join, connect to. Also, as a pi root is to fold, so it folds in on you. And it changed to meaning sincere, hard effort from the 1600s, and meaning a formal request to be hired for a job or a paid position. And then in 1969, it was shortened into an app program. 1969. Joining to, attaching oneself to. It says it all. To bring bear, something to bear on something else. So it's imposing and taking possession of you and your material. Please read what you're signing up for when you're clicking on those apps. Let's do this piece and then we'll have a music break. Here's the next last two pieces fairly detailed. But the discussion came up again this week, and many of our members are wondering why, as in the question earlier, why nobody knows about the Manor World Holding Trust. Trust me, many people all know about the Manor World Holding Trust. It's just the public who don't, the general public. As it stands now, those that matter all know. But many of us, the members, are wondering why I and or Kim have not been asked on any shows other than Randy's or OYM's. And it's pure and simple. I've said it all along. The alternative media is more controlled than many think. This show's put out way too much truth about the system, and they want as many people in the dark as possible. New hosts and people pop up with listening figures that are completely off the charts, that Randy or the OYM lads can't get anywhere near to, despite putting out good content and operating over many, many years. It doesn't make any sense, except to accept that the ones with the high figures that have just come in are being agency promoted. And we know that is the case, so it's not a suggestion. And the guests on their shows are generally indicative. Remember Jordan Sather's first interview? Yep, Robert David Steele. Same team, same agency, and same script. Now, people have been sending me I should listen to a new one this week. Sarah Westall. Suddenly being promoted heavily on the alt media. Apparently she's been around quite a while, but nobody's particularly paid much attention. And yet again, the same narrative guests on her shows, like Robert David Steele again and Anna von Reitz. Doesn't augur too well for her unless she changes direction. So I decided to look into Ms. Westall, and apart from some rather iffy links with Microsoft and Time Warner Cable, she's also linked with a company called Galax Consulting that has a plethora of Lutheran Brotherhood connections. Lutheran, which is exactly why Anna von Reitz was on there, as despite working for the Vatican, she declares herself to be Lutheran, which is a cult. Now, this has been a common theme, and why we've been ignored. Real researchers are ignored. Only the researchers who have sold out to the system are welcomed to expand their narrative. And not to mention that there's talk of a military general going around in our community offering and giving radio show hosts $5,000 to not have certain people on their shows. So now you know why. We'll have a music break, and I'm going to go into the history of alternative media in the next piece. Hi all, and welcome to the final portion of tonight's show. From time to time, particularly over the last 4 years, I've received a lot of flack about outing certain individuals or groups within the alternative community. Quotes of knocking out the competition, I'm working for Langley, or it appears I don't like anyone, all spring up. But over time, The ones that were exposed have all revealed themselves in due course. Winston Shrout, or Shroth, to give the correct pronunciation, is the latest I'm hearing to quit his blog and guest appearances. And slowly it's all winding down the plethora of people in our community who, to me at least, are actually worse than the cabal. Now, some were unaware. Many who followed the RV and all kinds of other things, they were unaware. But there are many who are or were aware of their actions. Well, disloyalty is a common theme in the alternative community. Even just from my own experiences tells you that. But to me, the cabal, the order, the form of control system aspects, all have a purpose and a goal. They all work towards. Sadly, few of them knew the real end goal that would eliminate them as well as us. And this is down to the massive compartmentalisation program that was implemented. But the cabal had a purpose. Now, we all disagree with that purpose, obviously. It's destructive, violent and heinous in many capacities, but they at least believed in it. Few of them realised that the overall plan is and was a planetary takeover, a total harvesting program, and once completed, an end to this Earth planet. Many believed that this was being implemented by humans. It wasn't. If all of them were told the real plan, would so many have gone along with it? I suspect not. And this level of teaching to get the real message out to those minions involved has been a key component in many of the subtle and also not so subtle changes that have been happening globally increasingly over the last 2 years. Now, you all know it's not easy telling the so-called lower masses, the unawakened, that most stuff they've been told is a lie. So you can imagine how difficult it is telling people with badges, titles, royalty and other so-called elites. They all think that they're all so important that they would know everything. But you know what? They didn't have the need to know either. It's a common theme. All of them fed a nice line to massage and soothe their imbalanced egos over how important they are, when in reality they're all pawns in the global destruction plan. Yes, to those of you in higher positions who I know listen, all of you are played as pawns in the game. I'm sorry to burst your pride and roles of self-importance, but reality sucks for you than even us so-called lesser important people. Many of you so-called elites are now beginning to realise you're more controlled, more lied to, more used, more abused, and more compartmentalised than even we were. You all played the sacrificial game of trampling on people to get to the top, only to realise they were all laughing at your own ego-based stupidity. You played the game for them. It's time to stand down off your fake elevated platforms and come and work with us to improve all things here. Trust me, you'll get far more out of life and happiness doing that than collecting fake currencies, fake badges of honour, fake titles and fake power. That time and game is rapidly coming to an end. We know that, and deep down, you also know that. It just takes a bit of courage to come forward. And we will welcome all of you. But the people started working stuff out. Something wasn't right here. And following the advent of the internet, Many of us who were in the shadows, cast aside from what was classed as normal society, there is no such thing, declared naughty or freaks, outcasts on our own planet. Just think about that for a second. Outcasts on your own planet. Like being declared an illegal alien. How can you be illegal on your own planet, for source sakes? It's beyond bizarre. Cast aside by family and friends, we all began to coalesce onto this new platform called the internet and realise, wow, there are many of us globally who have all suffered the same. I imagine you all had the same thoughts of, I thought I was the only one thinking this way. In a school of 1,300 pupils, I was the only one vocally talking about aliens at aged 11. The only one. Now, for all of us, it's been a lonely and sobering experience. Well, for myself, 20 or so years later, when the initial internet came out, apart from the obvious top search being porn, the most popular search was about ETs. And to people like me, I felt like a kid again, and all Christmases had come at once. Lots of people having shared experiences, and some pictures were posted up before the agency clowns started to post fake ones everywhere. It was a magic time, knowing finally I'm not the only one, and there are many of us believing in and having an interest in that subject. Now, as that subject was wrapped into conspiracy, as it was called, all other fields of knowledge on those sites that covered it popped up everywhere. About the criminality of the Vatican, the banking fraud, religion, rogue agencies, politicians, royalty and elites. The changing of history narratives all came into view. Down the rabbit hole we all went, chasing the white rabbit like the Mad Hatter, was the view of many, but we still persisted with that change of directive and also opinion. The early forums or blogs were riddled with Israeli-dominated agents. Yes, you, Debka, D-E-B-K-A, disrupting the flow of discourse and their distraction tactics. But some of us were wise to that, and I got thrown out of the very first and only forum I'd been on Disclosed TV, known as Forum 1.0. But as I exposed all of the Israeli agents in there, they launched Forum 2, promising all would be the same and all would be invited back, but I knew it wouldn't, and I was blocked out of it. Now, later on came the masses that filled up the community from 2008 through 2010 time, and it was all gathering momentum. A vast volume of people from all over the world, all coalescing, wanting all these conspiracies, as they were called then, a term created out of Langley, to discredit anything that resembled the truth. For those of you with long memories, you'll remember this quote: "We know our disinformation campaign is complete when everything the American people believe in is a lie." William Casey, head of Langley CIA, ably supported by the Paperclip crew and the Nazi Scherf family, better known as the Bushes. Now, Langley's involvement on various other agencies around the world, like Five Eyes, which is actually 9 or more, this was not just an American cover-up, but a global one. But it never ended there, though. It went into and pervaded right through our community. And what are the chances of the names of several of the top groups in our community and subsidiary connections that branched off those groups, all containing names of CIA secret projects? Many of you will know of Project Paperclip, or Northwoods and a few others. But the lesser known projects had far more sinister intentions than most are aware of. But into our community came the names Projects Camelot and Projects Avalon, who branched off from that with Project Phoenix. Even a guy we had on CV called Mark Thomas, who's linked with Keenan and Langley, had his foundation called the Lords of Light. That name is also the name of a CIA project. But it didn't end there, did it? In came the blue theme. And yes, the Blue Avians. And another subtle reference to a former and ongoing CIA project called Project Bluebird, which later became Artichoke. Now that particular project, which involved the most heinous experiments on children. So now you know why I reacted to the Contact in the Desert billboard where Wilcock and Corey Good spoke of harvesting the children in a 3-year program. Project Bluebird now became Blue Avian. Project Blue Book, Project Blue Beam, and the lesser known group Blue Brethren Club. If you look it up, you will see names in that group that will aghast and disappoint you in equal measure. It's all part of a program. The cabal have a system of colour-coded agents. Blue is not the only colour. People will have heard of Dr. Green and his links to the Mengele experiments. Maybe he was Mengele, as Dr. Green is a code name. Dr. Green is notorious up in Canada, and there are many Nazi-style experimentation programs after some of the Paperclip crew moved to Canada. Now, from all accounts, Dr. Green has a daughter within our community who spouts all kinds of shite as well, along with their Pine Gap agent sidekick. Oops. You have intelligence agents or high-profile people with names like Mr. or Mrs. White. White is not the real name. It is the program that they are attached to. Mr. Black is another prominent program. Think Black Diamond, Blackwater, Black Star Trust. Any trust with the term star in it, like the notorious 5-Star Trust. STAR is not a word, it is an acronym, and it stands for Special Trust Alternative Regime. Think about that. Alternative regime. 5-Star Trust. Nazis. And was brought into law in 1997 via the Cayman Islands. And others like the Black Trust for Children out of Nebraska, who have the trustees as Wells the Fargo. Literally Wells the Fargo. Even Black Lives Matter, all funded by Soros. All are run as dark rogue corporations or programs by the control system. It's all colour-coded. With so much bullshittery littered throughout our community, I felt I had to stand up and call these sellouts out. How can we learn anything new with so many distracting us? I remember the first interview I did on my own with the OYM lads back in March 2016, and the disbelief and sometimes outrage when I announced 70% of our community were agents, bullshitters or sellouts. Spouting BS for likes and monetary gain. but only a few knew that I had actually lowered that figure, so it gave people a chance to grasp it. The real figure then was 90%. 2.5 years later, people are now starting to see why that figure was so high. We were being bombarded with seducements like Nasara, which is a farming program for farmers, nothing to do with the people. Jessara, RVs, San Germain trust funds. The story on the San Germain trust fund beggars belief once you read it, is that San Germain went around all the elites, royalty, and collected funds and their estates that they left to him, and he was to distribute it to the poorer people. Like, since when have the elites ever had any consideration for we the people, other than using us as slaves? Like, never. But people still talk about it, even though that actual fund doesn't exist. Kim's gone through all 6,500 trusts, and that name is nowhere to be seen. OPPT and their cabal-driven birth certificate scam, trying to steal off the treasury. Wrong one. Oops. The Thrive movement. Has anybody asked where all their donations went to within that group? Just vanished into thin air. Collateral accounts out of secret underground bunkers in Indonesia and other places. Good luck with that. Prosperity packages and bloody ET packages were further seducements. The community was riddled with the religious and prophecy bullshit. Fake transitions at the time. Yes, you, Mr. Wilcock, telling all your listeners that you were more important than them and you wouldn't be here after December the 21st, 2012, as you would be transitioning. Yeah, you transitioned okay, but into a humanity sellout working for the covens. It's what you transitioned to. ETs were going to save us. It was a total minefield of information that was important to us all, and total misinformation. And we were only getting distracted and seduced into this type of bullshittery. Now, I felt THI was an opportunity to correct that. I did do some of it in Cosmic Voice, but it was kind of frowned upon by Drake and others. I thought THI, which started in the May, would need to correct things, and it would take up the whole of 2016 to do so. To my surprise, it was largely done and dusted by July of that year, just 2 months, and we were able to move forward with a clearer path. All of us have followed some or all of the above referenced, and many of them had valid stuff within their material, and that part still stands. But as for all the rest of the nonsense they delivered on a platter of bullshittery, that was best left behind for all of us. So I make no apology in my role for stripping down the alternative media of the deceivers. It was necessary. I didn't do it alone. I was ably supported by many others, like Randy Morgans, Shane Laruna, and the OYM lads. It was a total cesspool of people bought and paid for by the agency scriptwriters, and quite frankly it leaves a nasty taste in my mouth for those that played that role. The cabal had a purpose. They worked for the self. All of them now have an opportunity to come forward and admit their roles in that deception. The system that kept them in there is crumbling by the second. And like the generals and all the other minions, come and work with us to correct the nonsense that they've promoted. The olive branch Randy Morgans and I put out 2 years ago still stands for all of them. You don't have to play their game anymore. They are spent and a dying force. Time to correct your karma and serve we the people again. We will welcome you with open arms. That's why I outed so many, because so many were seducing you into the mainly money-based platforms. So easy to do, particularly in the times of economic recession, which we still haven't come out of 10 years later. It cleared a path for many, including myself. Final piece for tonight. The illiterate for this century will not be like the last century. For those who couldn't read or write, the illiterate for this century will be those who cannot unlearn the lies they have devoured in this and all other centuries. This century will unravel and unveil the lies, deceit and the perpetrators of the crimes against humanity, and ignorance will be a choice, not a statute or a regulation. Law, like sense, will return to common again, all done in a natural way. In 2 generations or less, our children will be walking libraries of real knowledge and truth, immersed in creativity, taught the ancient secrets of self-healing, and set on a course of mental planes evolution and ultimately cosmic evolution and beyond, so they can become the beacon of progress for our species. In 2 generations or less, we can replace need, not greed, and put an end to the materialistic debt loop of keeping up the Joneses in a competitive mindset of people who trample over everything and everyone under a core pirate structure. In 2 generations or less, we can work and learn from all the different cultures globally in a way that is conducive to all of us. Not under the rule of law, but under the directives of understanding, openness, willing, and striven to improve. In 2 generations or less, we can completely overhaul all the wrongs on this planet, be it people, non-humans, or control systems, and set a course for not only the living beings on this planet, but also the planet herself. In 2 generations or less, we can speak to, work with, learn together, and set a blueprint for the universe with all the extraterrestrials and non-terrestrials that are here, before those who wish to return to their homeworlds. All species working in harmony, not destroying each other, so they can go home and teach their species a better way also. In 2 generations, we can all learn to be harmony with the self, cure the sickness within us of mired in self-doubt, little me, envy, greed, insecurity, weaknesses into strengths. the lack of love, caring and sharing, the lack of consideration for others, where people are not defined by labels or chattel numbers or by one individual colour of the spectrum, but we all become the full spectrum of colour, radiating out for all the universe to see, where all are inclusive, not exclusive, on a planet where we create, not destroy, a planet we treasure, not disrespect, a planet of real hope, love, empathy and compassion, with us all exhibiting personal responsibility, a planet we can then truly call home, set in our image, not theirs. It will require the input of the all, not just the few. It will require for you all to be more flexible with yourself and with others. It will require you to be in service to others, not just for the self. It will require you to expand your consciousness, understanding and mindset to think and act differently. It will require you to focus not on your home, neighbourhood, city, state or country, but globally. It will require you to ditch your current old vessel riddled with dis-ease and lies and recreate a new version of you that shines brightly, that learns, teaches, helps and strives for a better world we can all be proud of. Not all of us will see it through to the end in this lifetime. But with the inner war gains we have done, all those who pass on and return to Source now have the opportunity to choose to return here one day to witness the fruits of your labour. We all have a duty and obligation, all of us, to create a new world and give the children and subsequent generations a chance to thrive and correct the ills we have all gone along with, or in some cases helped create. Ask less of what your country can do for you and more of what can I do for my planet and all the living species on it, around it and inside it. Pride is something many people lack, but pride is something we started out on tonight, and this show will end with pride also. One man comes in the name of love. Time for us all to come in the name of love. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.